The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Mahr Length Evaluation Product Line 2021 webinar. I'm George Schutz, Director of Precision Gauges here in Providence, Rhode Island. And if you have any questions during the presentation, use the chat feature, and I will respond to your question after the webinar by email. We have a pretty packed agenda today. We're going to learn about the Millimar Length product line, the C1200 bench amplifier, and some new exciting products, the new C1202 bench amplifier, the new N1700 PC with Millimar Cockpit Software, and we'll take a look at the 2022 product line for the Millimar line of amplifiers. So let's begin. Here's an overview of the Millimar product line. It includes indicator and evaluation instrumentation, a whole family of different LVDT types of probes, standard element components that allow us to build or allow users to build gauges from these standard products. And then we have some fixed plug mechanical bore gauges, and we have air gauging as part of the Millimar line. But let's begin with the C1200 bench amplifier. The C1200 bench amplifier was introduced in about 2015, and it's a full-feature bench amplifier. It has one probe input, an LVDT type of input. It can be battery or line powered, bench or wall mountable, battery powered so it can be portable. It has a customizable display where you have 3 different display arrangements that you can use, and it replaces many of the bench amplifiers out there because of the unique high resolution display that we employ. Like I said, it has a single LVDT input with a resolution of 0.1 micron or 5 microinches. We use a number of different types of LVDT inputs, and we'll talk about that later on. But really what is unique about the C1200 is its display. It's a very high resolution and high contrast color display. It employs a very fast refresh rate to achieve realistic simulation of an analog meter. And I think once you see that, you'll be impressed of how well it simulates an analog meter. The background color is used to indicate the part's tolerance conditions. It changes from green to yellow to red, and the display can be tilted for the best viewing angle. Now here's a little example of what the display looks like. I wish my camera was as high a resolution as the 1200 display, but you can get a good indication of once we zero the display, you can see that analog hand going back and forth. You can see that the color will change as we exceed the limits. So this is a very fast response amplifier. You can see the digits are clear and crisp, and we can get a good simulation, I think an excellent simulation of an analog meter. Now the keypad is a tough, hard key buttons with a haptic feedback so that when you press them, even if you have gloves on, you'll know that the switch has been made. And what we use is a flexible function keypad or soft keys so that the display above the key changes as the functions of those key changes depending on where you are in the user function of the amplifier. And the keypad is waterproof so that it resists splashes, etc. when it's used out on the shop floor. The C1200 can be battery powered or line powered. It uses 5 standard AA cells that go into the housing. So you can use it as a bench amplifier or as a portable gauging system. On the back of the product, we have the inductive probe input, the power connector, and a very powerful interface. It's an RS-232E full duplex interface, which means it has bi-directional punctuality, which means it can control and take commands from the RS-232 using a cable connection, or we can use our wireless add-on modules, our e-stick version with MarCom, to do controlling and data collection. Now, setting up the C1200 uses an easy-to-use interface. All the functions, like I said, are always available with soft keys in the measuring mode. So in the measuring mode here, we have a soft key that designates you can go into the menu function, an auto 0. You can reduce or increase the resolution, or you can use a send data button. And working through the menu is simple and straightforward with cursor movement. So you can see when we've gone into the setup mode, the soft keys now change to a check mark for select, or we can move the cursors up or down. So once we get into setup and we want to, say, for example, change the probe type, all we have to do is right click over. You can see there's a couple of tabs across the top. So we're going to right click 2 times to get into the setup tab. Once we're into the setup tab, we're going to go down 2 clicks to probe type, hit the check mark for select, and now we're in the probe type, standard probe, and we can select that. So very simple to use, easy to navigate menu functions. And here's those 4 tabs that we talked about. We have a measurement tab that allows us to select things like our masters, nominal values, set up our tolerances, create the formula within the C1200, go from the normal measuring mode to do our dynamics, etc. So lots of power in this measurement tab. The display tab allows us to change the resolution of the digital display, choose the analog or digital or analog or 3 different types of display formats, choose a color scheme, brightness, etc. And here's the 3 different types of display formats that we have. We have an analog digital display, a digital display, and an analog only display. And you can see they're bright, clear, and easy to read. Then we go on to a setup tab, which talks about basic setup functions like the language, inch or metric, what type of probe we're using, and we do have an economy mode or an eco mode, which allows us to dim display after a shorter period of time when we're using the batteries, for example. And then the systems tab is things like an absolute mode, which gives us the ability to show the input in a true position mode, which is used for setting up the probe. Also the ability to do calibration, go back into factory settings, locking out certain functions of the keyboard. So lots of power within the systems tab. So here's some typical measuring tasks. We can do a static thickness check with a probe and a bench fixture, for example, or a height stand. We can also use a dynamic mode, say using the max mode, and we can push the part through underneath the probe and collect the maximum diameter, for example. This is a great gauge with bore gauging, mechanical plug gauges as a bench or a portable system. And here's some typical dynamic functions, doing runouts, doing flatness, or doing wall thickness. So why do people use the C1200? Because it's a full feature bench amplifier with its different display formats. It simulates an analog display for dynamic checking very well, has selectable inch metric modes, normal reverse, tolerances, master deviations. Customers can do their own calibration, and it has data output for monitoring the process, collecting data, etc. So I think this is a high value, full feature amplifier, great value for the price point. and it's replacing a lot of bench amplifiers that are out there. It's an economical replacement for high resolution digital indicators in a bench stand, and we see a lot of people doing that because it gives them another level of resolution plus the data output capability. So it's simple, it's high performance, and it's ideal for point of part manufacturer. And it provides easy data collection with our MarCom software. Now let's build upon this success. Since 2015, we've had a lot of success with the C1200 because of its display, full feature, competitive price position. Customers have overwhelmingly adopted to it. We've sold thousands and thousands of these C1200 bench amplifiers. So now it's time to build upon these features with the next generation product. So I'm going to introduce to you today the new Millimar C1202 indicator and evaluation instrument. It's the next generation with 2-channel length measuring instruments, and it's going to be available very soon. We'll start delivering in September of 2021. So what is the C1202? It's a 2-channel length measuring instrument. And once you take the base C1202 and combine it with our N1700 modules, it becomes a measuring instrument. So it's one display for many different applications depending upon the module that's connected to it. So it has a maximum of 2 measuring channels, for example, 2 LVDT inputs or 2 air gauging inputs. But you can have a maximum of 3 measuring features. So it can be very flexible for different measuring tasks. And as your measuring requirements change, the C1202 can be configured for those different measuring tasks by changing the modules that are easy to swap out. Some of the functions of the C1202 include the high precision ability to use in an inspection area or at the point of manufacture on the shop floor. It has a resolution of 0.1 microns or 5 microinches, or if we use it with our high resolution N1700 amplifier, it can go to 0.01 microns or 0.5 microinches. It can be a static measurement for length and or angle, so we can measure angles with the product. And if you are measuring angles, you can choose a readout of decimal degrees, minutes and seconds, or radians. It has dynamic functions for min, max, max minus min, and max plus min divided by 2. And of course, it has tolerance and warning limits with the display changing color with the tolerance conditions. It's inch metric switchable. It can use single point or 2-point, min-max mastering for each feature individually or together. Like I said, it can display up to 3 features, and the user can individually activate the feature at the time required. You also have the ability to rename the features, put your own custom headers on the features. We have one switching input for sending data. It's assignable, so you can make it a master measurement, a clear max min, start the measuring or stop the measuring cycle. And we have some time control of that measuring cycle. So you might have a delay after you tell it to start the measurement so that the part can settle down and ensure that it's in the proper position. And these measuring routines can be saved and called up later on. So just like the C1200, the display can be tilted for optimal viewing angle, wall mounted, of course, with its capabilities. It has the same high definition, high response rate display for realistic visualization of an analog indicator. And it's a 4.3-inch color display, so it's large, clear and easy to read. We can display the measured values in the dial, digital, or bar graph format, very similar to the C1202. And you can change the colors when tolerances are on of green, yellow, and red. Because you can display 3 features at the same time, it offers a lot of flexibility. For example, measuring diameters and tapers, you can measure 2 diameters and calculate the angle for taper measurements. And the background color changes with the tolerance conditions. The keypad and menu navigation is the same functions as the C1200. It's user-friendly, clear menu structure. The keys have the soft key function so that it's flexible with the operation, and only the keys that are available to the user are displayed when required. Again, these are our splash-proof haptic type value pressure point keypad so that you know when the selection is made and it will react accordingly. Just like the C1202, this is like a 1200, this is a bi-directional interface where we can transfer measurements, but we can also take commands from, say, MarCom to set up the unit remotely. And all those control commands are part of MarCom, so you can tell it what the tolerances are, what the master values are, control it with start-stop functions on a keyboard, for example, all controlled by MarCom. And because it's a two-way communication, we are now including an ID signifier with the data output. So this is a big thing if you really want to track the data where it's coming from. So not only do you know what the measured values are, you can now know the time and date, and you can know what instrument sent out the data. And by doing that, you have full information about when it was calibrated, whether it was the right instrument that made the measurement. And it's a very powerful feature. And of course, these are all controlled by MarCom. And as you know, MarCom is our free data collection software, whether it be our wireless product, wired product, or add-on modules. It's an easy way of getting data into a third-party software, into Microsoft Excel, in fact, into any Windows type of program. It's a flexible data control and collection instrumentation. And why data collection? Why Mahr for data collection? Because this is the fastest growth area as customers continue to realize the importance of data collection for documentation, process control, process improvement, and now with the serial number as part of the identification, gauge tracking. So our data collection is transparent, no add-on modules if we're using our integrated wireless product, and it becomes part of the normal measuring routine. And of course, again, MarCom is our free software package. When we talk about the connections, the N1700 modules, so you can see that the modules just plug right into the back. So these modules are self-contained. The system is self-recognizing so that when you plug a module in, it knows whether it's an LVT or an air gauge or whatever product it is. So we have modules for 2 inductive probes, and they can be Mahr, TESA, or MarPOS compatible probes. You can plug in 1 or 2 air gauging modules. And we have a new incremental probe module for probes, rotary encoders, etc. So C1202 becomes a very versatile bench evaluation system. Also on the back is a connection for the power supply, our connection for our 1 input switching functions that's programmable, that you can tell it what to control. And we have a slot for a micro SD card for saving and loading measuring tasks. Also, should firmware change with the C1202, it's something that a user can download, put it onto the SD card, and upgrade his C1202 with the latest firmware. Like I said, the display is very fast, and just like the C1200, you can see that we have a bar digital display, very fast analog meter showing the color display. And if I want to change functions, I can save different part programs and make the change from one part to another very easily. Again, I wish my camera was as higher resolution as the display, but I can pull up a part program very simply. And now I can go from a single result output. And here's an example of a diameter, a taper application where we're showing two diameters and the taper angle. All in one display. The taper is being shown as a degree, minute, second readout. So this is a very good display for doing taper measurements. Here's some pictures of the different modules. We have our 2-input module for LVDTs for Mahr, TESA, and MarPOS probes. Our new high-resolution display. They get even better resolution than the standard product. Inputs for air modules and our new incremental probe module or rotary encoder module. So typical applications could be a differential thickness measuring using two opposed probes, or we can use it with a standard bench stand, a couple of probes looking for runout or coaxiality of a part. And here's our taper application using an air plug measuring two diameters at locations A and B, and then getting the taper angle as a result of that measurement. So why do people need the C1202? Well, again, it's a full feature bench amplifier, multi-channel, one or two inputs using LVDT, air, or digital encoders, has three features to displayed in different formats. It simulates an analog display very nicely for dynamic checks. Full feature amplifier with inch metric switching, normal reverse, tolerances, master deviation. Customers can do their own calibration. It has data output and control. So I think it's a super high value amplifier for the price. And speaking of price, the C1202 is going to start at $1,500 when we start selling it in September of 2021. And here's a list of all the various modules that are available for it. So this is going to be a much more powerful amplifier at lower cost than many of the products that we have now. And speaking of those products, the C1202 is going to become the replacement for a lot of our amplifiers, our C1208, 832 analog, 832 bench amplifiers, our pneumatic products like the C1208 PE, the 832 PE, and even our Dimensionaire products. These are all going to be discontinued over the next 6 months or so, all replaced by the C1202 because of its flexibility, its better performance, better adaptability to different applications. So going forward, this is going to be the Mahr bench amplifier line for 2022. Our C1200, the C1202 with two inputs throwing three features, our 1840 column display, and our micro Dimensionaire. We will support the other product repairs and so forth for the next few years, but going forward in 2022, this is our bench amplifier line. Or if you need something that's more powerful than the C1202, you need more inputs, you need more functionality in terms of equations and so forth, well, we can use the same Millimar N1700 modules with our Millimar Cockpit software. So Cockpit is our powerful and easy to use intelligent amplifier system software. It can be purchased separately or it can be supplied with our N1700 PC, which is a 7-inch touchscreen display, window-based industrial PC, and is compatible with a full range of Mahr products, including our N1700 modules, which includes air modules, digital encoders. It can use our wired USB interface, or it can also use our wireless product line using the add-on modules or our integrated module system. So when using with the N1700 PC, it's an interactive multi-touch software package, so it can be used touchscreen. It's easy and intuitive to use. Measuring tasks can be easily created, and you can create some pretty complex measuring tasks with our formula wizard. The user can create his own customizable display of columns, digital display with a horizontal bar graph or an analog dial. So here's an example of 5 columns and 4 digital displays. You can assign tolerances and warning limits, and you can see the display changes colors as the tolerances are exceeded. You can use a classification mode where you can take an input and divide it into 20 classes. You can also add things, user interfaces for a customer to pull up a part print if needed as part of the gauging routine. And we have lots of I/O control features for transferring data, starting and stopping the measuring cycle, interrupts for moving the parts, etc. So like I said, we have a lot, and the display is very fast, just like our other products. You have a very active live visualization of the measuring values with active color changing related to the tolerances. From 64 inputs, you can display up to 128 features, but you don't have to display them all at once. You can create a gauging routine so that if you have multiple stations of multiple measurements, you can guide the user through these gauging stations. You can display angles in units of radians or angled decimal angles. And you have data output for Microsoft Excel or QS stat formats, very similar to the way that MarCom works, where you can define where the data is going to go in the Excel sheet. We include mastering of 1 or 2 point conditions, and you can decide to master individually or total master for all the displays being used. We also have the ability to do some security functions of 4 levels of user rights, for example, from complete user rights to the ability to, once the part is loaded, the operator can only collect data. This is license controlled, so there will be a plug-in module, a USB stick to use the Millimar Cockpit software, and there are tabs within the software for online instruction use. So what can you do with the Millimar Cockpit software? Lots of different measuring tasks, whether it be a static measurements of thickness, summation, difference, dynamic measurements for runout, concentricity example, or you can combine lots of probes together for doing, say, static concentricity. Perpendicularity or squareness can be done, or we can measure 2 diameters at a known distance, calculate the taper angle based on those 2 readings. So it's great for doing gauging stations. It's an intelligent amplifier, taking multiple inputs, using, for example, our standard elements to create a measuring station. And now the software, Millimar Cockpit software, can collect the data from those different probes, doing the diameters, the relationships, the dynamics. It's a great way of collecting data and making measurements for production metrology. But of course, you can use it on smaller fixtures. If you just have one or two inputs using our wired or wireless products, you can collect data from a simple gauging fixture. So here's some typical examples. Here's a N1700 PC with our stand. We have a number of different air plugs, for example. Here's 3 air plugs and 1 air ring. We've used guided sequence to allow the user to measure one parameter or one measurement at a time, leading them through that sequence. You'll see one display at a time, and then at the end get a summation of those 4 measurements, and then allows the user to collect that data. Here's a taper example where we're using an air plug on this suspension arm to measure the 2 diameters and calculate the angle. And here's another taper angle that using air gauging with, but this time the gauge line diameter was too close for air jet location, but we can still measure the 2 diameters, calculate the angle, and we can project where that gauging line diameter is, all with our Millimar Cockpit system. So some specs about Cockpit. We have the ability to change the resolution, measure in inches or millimeters and angles. It's compatible with all our Millimar modules, has the data output format, doing dynamic measurements, up to 128 features or characteristics from 64 channels, and we can connect this with our iStick or eStick types of products. So this is the N1700 modules are very flexible, and we have a wide variety of different modules available, all through a RS485 bus, so that we know that the bus rate is very fast and we can collect a lot of dynamic data quickly and accurately. It's modular and customizable by adding the N1700 modules to create the specific customer measuring task, and we have a family of modules for different types of measuring sensors. So everything is connected through this USB module, and what this allows you to do is connect the PC through the USB cable and now add your modules onto it. The USB module provides a current supply of 430 milliamps, and each module has some current draw, and what you can do is calculate how much draw is required by looking at the different inputs. So you can see here that we have different modules, and they can be added on to the system to create your measuring task. Now, once those modules add up to more than 430 milliamps, you can add a power supply module to increase the capabilities of the modular bus. We also have an I/O module that has 4 inputs and 4 outputs. Again, these can be stacked up per the requirement and be used as part of a semi-automatic gauging operation. So why do you need an N1700 PC with Cockpit? Well, it allows for lots of gauging flexibilities because of its multi-channels. It has different types of input types. It's user-defined features with guide and sequence. You can create your own display formats. It simulates an analog display for dynamic checks if you like to use that. Selectable inch metric, normal reverse, tolerances, master deviation, customer calibration, and you have the ability to collect data in a number of different formats. So the Cockpit system is a very intelligent gauging amplifier system display formats for your bench or your semi-automatic gauging needs. Simplicity, performance are ideal at the point of manufacture. So that's our new line of Millimar evaluation, the C1200, the 1202, the N1700 PC with cockpit software. They're all modern looking, they're all powerful, and at the price point, they have a very high value. So why Mahr? Mahr has a very broad product line of industrial metrology. We have the application competence to support you. You can call Mahr anytime, get a live person to help you with your gauging needs. As you can see with the C1202 and the N1700 PC, we have some very innovative products that are a lot different than the competition. We run promotions with prices on high quality products to give you the best value. And then after this webinar, we will send you an email link to the recording of this webinar so you can refresh your memory anytime about these new products. So thank you for your attention. It's been a pleasure introducing you to the new C1202 and N1700 PC.